Well, I want to take you back on a journey to yesterday. Yesterday, live on this stream, we covered not that story. Let's see, we covered this story about the Colorado Teachers Union passing a resolution declaring capitalism inherently exploits children and public schools. Well, as I was reading this story, something funny happened because we got down to the screenshot of the original resolution put before the Colorado Teachers Union, which was even actually worse than the resolution they actually passed. And I happened to notice something right up here, submitted by Brian Lindstrom. Now, I don't know exactly why this clicked in my head when I saw this, because I actually hadn't thought about this in probably a year and a half. But I knew the name, Brian Lindstrom. And immediately when I saw it, I said, I outed this guy on Twitter 2 years ago. And on the stream yesterday, I tried to find the tweet in which I outed this guy as a Marxist on Twitter 2 years ago. Sadly, apparently every browser and everything on my computer was trying to update at the same time, which have now been updated. The browsers have been updated. The OS has been updated. So it wasn't actually really working out that well for me to find the tweet on the stream. But guess what? I found it later. And then I started going through the rest of Brian's tweets, and oh my God. Listen, guys, I always tell you guys, one of the very first things you need to do when you're concerned about what is going on in your kid's school is you need to look at the teachers on social media. You need to look at their Twitters. You need to look at their TikToks. You need to look at their Instagrams. You need to look and see the things they're following. You need to see the things that they're talking about, because I promise you, we have seen this over and over and over and over and over again. The activist teachers, and do you notice that our friend Brian here has an Educate shirt with the power fist on it? The activist teachers just can't help themselves but to say the quiet part out loud over and over and over and over again. And so I thought that we would do something fun on the stream today. Something I did a kind of, I wasn't totally crying on the internet, but I was kind of crying on the internet. I'll take you back to like last week when I was like, I'm never doing school investigations again. And you guys were like, no, Karlyn, no, you cannot give up. And I was like, fuck you, no one watches them. And you were like, Karlyn, your work is important. You have to keep doing it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it if no one's going to watch it. It was one of those, you know, everyone on the internet has moments now and again, but I actually like am committed to like not doing as much of the school investigation stuff. However, today we're going to make an exception because, and I'm going to show you this in one of the tweets, Brian flat out tweeted that he says the same things to his school principal and his school superintendent that he says to all of us. And so I was like, you know what? This is like, you know what this is, guys? This is a sign from the universe. This is, I last week when I was having a really tough time, I really did pray to the universe. I prayed. I said, give me some sort of indication that this is the path I'm supposed to be on, because I can't do this anymore. I really did. I didn't do it live on the internet for once, but I had a good fucking cry one night, and I was laying in bed and I said, please give me a sign. Any sign. I need an overt sign. I need a sign smacking me upside the head that I am not wasting my time and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And you know what? Ask and ye shall receive, because I can't think of a bigger sign than a random teacher coming up that I called out as a Marxist 2 years ago that has now gotten a resolution passed in Colorado that says that denouncing capitalism, And I found this guy 2 years ago, and I found tweets of this person saying, "I say the same thing to my principal and my superintendent." I thought, guys, we would jump in and we would do a good old-fashioned school investigation. All right, let's move on. And we're going to move into our main story for the day. Now, again, for those who have just joined, please mount that like button for me. I do appreciate it. So yesterday, I told you the story of the Colorado Teachers Union passing a resolution declaring capitalism inherently exploits children and public schools. And while I was midstream, I had the revelation that I exposed this asshole 2 years ago. I exposed this teacher that introduced this resolution to the Colorado Education Association 2 years ago. As a reminder, please always check the social media of your child's teachers. You will be glad you did, I promise you. Meet Brian Lindstrom. Brian is the teacher who sponsored the resolution passed by the teachers union in Colorado last week that declares capitalism inherently exploits children, public schools, land, labor, and resources. Now, if you think that sounds crazy, consider this. That wasn't even Brian's first draft of the resolution. The first draft, and we know this because they leaked a photo of it, the CEA believes that capitalism requires the exploitation of children, public schools, land, labor, and/or resources, and therefore the only way to fully address systemic racism, the school-to-prison pipeline, climate change, patriarchy, gender and LGBTQ disparities, educational inequality, and income inequality is to, wait for it, dismantle capitalism and replace it with a new, equitable economic system. Now, I love this resolution. Okay, I don't like the content of this resolution, but what I do love about this resolution is it so clearly demonstrates what I have been preaching for probably damn near a year now, which is that the 4 goals of the woke left are always and forever the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. And how this works is that the woke left gets themselves into positions of power, either hard power or soft power. They then use that power to do things that will fundamentally destabilize the current system. Basically, they're going to cause problems. They will then blame the problems that they themselves are causing on capitalism because they hate capitalism and they want to get rid of it. And then they will rile people up to try to anger them about capitalism until they can say, here's a replacement for capitalism, and usher in their Marxist utopia. Do you guys see how that works? They gain power, they use that power to cause problems, they blame those problems on capitalism, and then they say our only solution is to usher in a Marxist utopia. Well, guess what this resolution does? This resolution literally does every single one of those things. Every single one of those things. Brian gained power to be able to introduce the resolution. Brian introduced a resolution that would fundamentally destabilize the system and in fact argued that the system had already been destabilized. Brian then said, the problem, the thing that destabilized the system is capitalism. And then Brian said, when he said replace capitalism with a new equitable economic system, he then said, I've got a system for you. Have you considered Marxism? And I'm going to prove Brian is a Marxist when we look at his tweets. But I really want everyone to see how this works. It is so slick. It is so insidious. But once you really, really understand that the 4 goals of the woke left are always and forever, gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia, you will start to see exactly how they're doing it. I want to take this super chat from Naruto. Tucker Carlson is bringing his show to Twitter. Well, we'll see how that goes. That'll be exciting. When is he starting that, Naruto? And so I want to prove to you that Brian is indeed talking about Marxism, because we always bring receipts on this show. Now, the first thing I want to show you is this. This is when I met Brian. This is when I became familiar with Brian, because Brian, back in June of 2021, said on Twitter, "I'm going on the record now. At the end of the day, it's just my students and me in our classroom, and we will be discussing race, class, and gender in my history class, regardless of what laws and policies people want to pass. Critical race theory is a component of everything I do." And then he followed up and said, "I teach African American history, Latin American history, and world history, and focus on social movements, and people are surprised that race and gender get discussed." Well, I'm pretty sure that what happened is someone sent me this tweet, and then I made Brian go viral on Twitter. Because this is a time when my Twitter account was very active, very, very, very active, and I made Brian go viral on Twitter for this tweet, and Brian blocked me, but I got Brian, and he locked his account at the same time after I made him go viral. He blocked me and locked his account, but because we always get screenshot everything, archive everything, and you can always get around a Twitter block. Just FYI, you like, all you need to do is log in under like a browser that's not even logged in, or like a private browser or something like that. It's really not that hard. But like, just all better safe than sorry. Always get a screenshot, because they're always going to block you. Bruno says, "I found a PDF about using CRT as a tool of analysis and race in education in their site." Well done, Bruno. Well done. See, you guys are already doing such a good job. So I made Brian go viral, and I even, believe it or not, if you have a copy of my book, Actively Unwoke, The Ultimate Guide for Fighting Back Against the Woke Insanity in Your Life, I actually wrote about Brian in my book. I cited Brian specifically in a long list of instances where teachers are overtly saying that they are going to ignore laws and teach whatever they want in their classes. And I had a whole long list. You can find that in chapter 5 if you have a copy of the book. But that's why I remembered Brian. It's not that I have a photographic memory, but I remember things sometimes when they're really important, and that's what I remembered there. But that's not all Brian has tweeted, because last night, while I was on my 5-hour private supporter call, of course, I was listening to my supporters and enjoying my time with them, as we always do. Monday supporter calls are amazing. They are the best. But I also took the opportunity to just do some cursory Twitter searching through Brian's profile, and I want to show you what I found. And guys, again, if you just joined, always check the social media of your kids' teachers. Let me show you what this guy has been tweeting out for years. He is a high school history teacher. And we're going back to 2019, March 7th, 2019, retweeting AOC. "In case you're unsure, systemic racism is a fact. Black lives matter, and white privilege is real, and I benefit from it, and it is my duty to be actively anti-racist. And this is why housing and educational justice are among my biggest passions." By the way, Brian has run for public office in Colorado at least twice. He is trying desperately to get in those positions of power. February 18th, 2020. "But the people in the photo are all POC and or queer folks, FOLX. No white males at all." August 11th, 2020. "Money for both the firearm and the safe to keep them in. I tend to follow Marx on the topic of guns." Oh, Brian is admitting that he's a Marxist. Told ya. September 1st, 2020. "Can you be anti-capitalist and anti-patriarchy without being anti-capitalism?" October 7th, 2020. "A history of hit here too." I don't know how to say that word. "Existing society in the history of class struggles." The real point in this is that he's quoting Marx. He's quoting Marx. Oh, wait, guys, it gets better. We're just getting started. November 4th, 2020. This is his reference to the Trump presidential election, or in 2020, the Trump-Biden presidential election. Why is the race so close? Don't they see how racist he is? Yes, he's racist. But just calling all Trump supporters racist really ignores the fault of us in this. Since Carter, the Democrats have stopped caring about workers, and now many of these blue-collar workers are done. Brian is literally telling us that he is more far left than the Democrats. Remind me, what's further left than the Democrats? December 3rd, 2020. This is Brian talking about the massive amount of learning loss that students faced during the pandemic. Brian doesn't seem to think that learning loss is a really big deal. So he says, they're falling behind. And me, behind what? We literally made up the standard and graduation requirements. We can just change them. This is the result of capitalism, plain and simple. We're predisposed to believe that everyone has to be productive at all times. Brian is quite literally saying, if students are experiencing learning loss, that's not a problem. No big deal. You want to know why? We can just lower the bar. That's all we need to do as teachers. Just lower the standard. Folks, this is equity in action. This is exactly what equity looks like. If someone can't achieve this level, just lower the standard. That's okay. Pull everyone down. And he's also blaming capitalism for the learning loss instead of the pandemic and the teachers' unions keeping the schools closed for 2 effing years. Or I guess 1 year at this point. Moving on, January 22nd, 2021. Capitalism supports racism. Capitalism supports heteropatriarchy. Capitalism supports ageism. Capitalism supports ableism. Capitalism supports imperialism. You can't be anti-racism, anti-heteropatriarchy, anti-war, anti-ableism without being anti-capitalism. March 1st, 2021. I think most people who support capitalism don't do so because it's working well for them. It's because they can't imagine a world without trading time or money or the commodification of everything. My fellow educators and I need to do better with getting our students to imagine. Let me read this one again. This one I think I glossed over in my head earlier, but this one is actually really important. This is a teacher. I think most people who support capitalism don't do so because it's working well for them. It's because they can't imagine a world without trading time or money or the commodification of everything. My fellow educators and I need to do better with getting our students to imagine something new. Brian is quite literally telling you in this tweet that we need to get our students to consider Marxism. We can't allow our students to support capitalism. We literally need them to teach them to support Marxism. They aren't even hiding it. March 24th, 2021. I'm sick of talking about the Band-Aid solutions and performative gestures. The elephant in the room is capitalism. End it, and we will solve so many of these plaguing issues. Now, this one is interesting to me. I want to go back to the resolution that Brian offered. And notice this. This is the original resolution that Brian offered for the Colorado Teachers Union that says that they need to agree to dismantle capitalism and replace it with a new equitable economic system, which means Marxism. And then he said, the reason for submitting, we are constantly using band-aids and minor reforms to make things better, which is good, but the system itself is the problem and needs to be named. Well, what did Brian say here 2 years ago? I'm sick of talking about the band-aid solutions and performative gestures. The elephant in the room is capitalism. End it, and we will solve so many of the plaguing issues. He literally said this 2 years ago, and no one was paying attention. Brian says capitalism is giving the wolf control over the flock. Socialism is giving the flock control over the flock. That was from April 28th, 2021. I just haven't responded yet. I apologize. Brian says on April 29th, 2021, propaganda tells us that socialism takes away our freedoms. That's simply untrue. Production is made of capital, labor, and land use. Socialism versus capitalism is a debate over who should control the land. Capitalists say it should be those with capital, and socialists say it should be the workers. June 16th, 2021. This was the same day that I made Brian go viral. You're welcome, Brian. Apparently, people think tagging my district on my posts is going to get me to stop being vocal and anti-racist inside and outside my classroom. Inside and outside my classroom. My guy, I'm just as vocal to my principal and my superintendent. You think the person running the district social media is going to stop me? And it was this tweet here that inspired the idea of the little school investigation that we're going to do into Brian's school district. Because if he's this vocal with his principal and his superintendent, I want to know what else this school district is doing. And we've already got people in the chat that are doing a diligent job. Reagan says there are like 30 people on the organizational chart for the Division of Equity and Learning in their equity department. That's fucking crazy. Moving on. June 23rd, 2021. Critical race theory is the new Red Scare. June 28th, 2021. Gender is a construct, my friend. We should all be reflective enough to still be seeking clarity at any age. Thanks for sharing with us. July 1st, 2021. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to pick sides. Solidarity with the proletariat and fight for liberation together. July 6th, 2021. In the Veil of Ignorance thought exercise, no one chooses socialism. August 31st, 2022. Protect trans youth. BAM. Does anyone remember what BAM means? Pop quiz. Does anyone remember what BAM means? This is old school. If you're just coming to this new, you might not remember this. Does anyone remember what BAM stands for? This is not about like kapow or like BAM. It's not saying like loud noise or like mic drop or anything like that. BAM actually does stand for something. I'm just going to give people a moment in the chat to see if we get some guesses. By any means necessary, by any means necessary, by any means necessary, by any means necessary. Who uses the slogan of BAM? Does anyone remember? I got introduced to BAM through the Berkeley riots in what, like 2018? Not just socialists. That's Antifa. BAM is Antifa. If someone's using BAM, I'm going to go, are you an Antifa mother effer? Antifa, exactly, Nano. Nano got it. Gold star for Nano. On November 26, 2021, capitalism benefits from the patriarchy. You can't have class consciousness while ignoring entire classes of people. September 18th, 2022, he's replying to Daniel Buck, who is a prominent anti-woke activist who's also a teacher. He says, you literally get paid to push anti-teacher, anti-union, racist, classist propaganda. December 20th, 2022, there's no voluntary work under capitalism. The threat of starvation and homelessness is coercive. Now, here's a really fun one. This one we're going to have to read between the lines through a little bit, but I know that some of you are going to see what I see in this. So in December, Brian was replying to a woman named Justine. Justine says, at a holiday gathering last night, a family friend told me, you haven't had kids or even been married. What happened? Then she proceeds to warn me that one day I will be eating turkey dinner all alone if I don't figure it out soon. So happy holidays to me. Okay, fine. Brian responds, internalized capitalism and rugged individualism. We couldn't couldn't possibly be happy being a member of a grander community. You must create a community of biologically connected people in order to be connected. I'm sorry that viewpoint got vomited onto you. Why does it seem like Brian is attacking the biological family by calling it a community of biologically connected people? Does anyone else think that Brian is like waffling around, abolish the biological family? I think Brian's waffling around, abolish the biological family, which I've covered extensively on the channel if you haven't seen it. In this one, Brian is responding to this image called Socialism for Dummies. Everything is free, but we're all out of it. And he says this is literally a photo of a store under capitalism. In this one, Brian is responding to an account called Trash Panda with a trans pride flag. And the account says, what do you consider to be the bare minimum qualification for someone to be considered a leftist? And Brian says, capitalism bad. And this is like the last one I have for right now, but, you know, says a lot. May 8th, 2023, just yesterday. Why is it so hard to realize that gender and sexuality are fluid spectrums versus fixed binaries? People like what they like, are who they are. You don't have to understand it or even like it to realize it's none of your concern and that rights shouldn't be dependent on your feels. Guys, I found all of these tweets within about 15, 20 minutes. Really didn't take that long. I probably could have done it like a lot faster if I wasn't on a community call when I did it because my attention was going back and forth. But this was a really quick exercise. And the way that I did it is I searched Brian's Twitter account for a variety of words. And you can find the list over on the website. This is totally free. Let me pop the link in the chat. Please make sure you subscribe for free on my website while you're there. Here are the list of keywords that I used to find those tweets. Capitalism, Marx, Marxism, patriarchy, critical race theory, whiteness, anti-racism, gender, non-binary, trans, transphobe, liberation, abolition, proletariat. And that's not a comprehensive list. That was just the list that I was doing off the top of my head. But if you search for the Twitter account name and those words, it took me 15 minutes to find all of these tweets that very clearly show that Brian is a Marxist. And so when he got a resolution passed by the Colorado Teachers Union to denounce capitalism, we could have seen this coming for years. I wonder how many conservative parents had their children educated by Brian, not realizing that Brian is a far left Marxist activist. That would be a really good question, wouldn't it?